Well, welcome to our natural living workshop with Lily Kunning, herbologist with Haven Herbs. We are very excited that she is presenting today on eliminate toxic chemicals from your life. So thank you, Lily.
Hello. Was that it? You didn't have any more announcements?
That's it.
Okay. So I often use an abbreviation and call this detox your life, but I've stopped using that word a lot because it's kind of problematic and like been usurped by like diet, weight loss, kind of body shaming culture. And I definitely want to put out there that that's not what this particular session is about. When I say detox, short for detoxification, I'm talking about avoiding specific toxins and the way that they come into our personal lives, and outlining some of the ways that may be surprising to you, how they come into our lives and how we can eliminate them to stay well. So I wanted to throw that out there real quick. You can move on to the next slide. Yeah. And to that end, I kind of wanted to start by detoxifying our mind of some toxic thoughts. You know, people here on in this particular Zoom have all suffered from chronic illness or are helping someone with chronic illness. And I just want to say that we can all do something, but there's no one standard of health that's achievable for all bodies. And that idea is marketed quite hard. And it reinforces a lot of systemic problems and notions that people with illnesses or disabilities have defective bodies rather than different bodies. And I kind of wanted to put that out there, that this is aimed at helping all of us take next steps no matter where we're starting. Next slide. And I also wanted to say that you can achieve health at every size. And there's actually a book by that name by Dr. Linda Bacon. And there's a lot of fictions that most of us believe are fact, including some medical professionals out there. And I attached, Darlene is going to be sending you not only this slideshow, but a bunch of really cool resources. And two of those resources are about health at every size and maybe some misunderstandings that people have around fatness and illness. Next slide. So we're going to cover food, water, air quality, your home and the surrounding things like your yard and your garden, body care, and also buying new items. There's a lot of new items out there that come with a toxic load that people aren't even aware of. So for food, again, we're going to be talking about ingredients and processes and specific chemicals involved, not really about like clean eating in this particular class. So first thing I wanted to talk about is the sort of chemicals that most people are familiar with when it comes to like produce or even meat and cheese, the organic certification. So organic, whether applies to produce in the produce section or cheese, it's a legal definition. And so those standards are uniform across whatever entity is certifying the organic certification. So in the case of the USDA, they have a federal definition of what constitutes an organic product and what doesn't. And that helps to really clarify that term, because the word natural doesn't mean anything legally. And so anyone can make those claims on a package and you don't necessarily know whether it's really healthy or not. That said, there are industry lobbyists and pressure groups that always are trying to push that definition closer to something that serves large agribusiness over consumers. And so we're constantly having to, do hearings and make sure that we maintain a really rigorous definition of organic. Um, and I enclosed you'll get an email, some resources. One is actually a little card that you can stick in your wallet, and it's all about the Dirty Dozen, which is a term that the Environmental Working Group puts out every year. They review hundreds of pounds of produce and they figure out which 12 are the highest in pesticide and chemical fertilizer and other herbicide residue. And they publish that so that you know to buy those 12 organic. And then they also publish one called the Clean 15, which means, if you're on a budget or maybe you're not in an area that has a really wide variety of organic produce, those 15 are always safe to buy, even commercial, because the amount of residues that have been tested over a year in different places is relatively low. So I enclose that for you so that you can, be empowered when you're at the store to figure out which choices you should make. But I also wanted to talk about the idea of processed food and non-food, which are all those middle aisles in the grocery store. So when you go to the grocery store, you start out in produce, and if you just rim the store, you have bakery and dairy and meat, and and they all sort of form the horseshoe that encompasses all of these middle aisles of frozen and boxed and canned food. All of that processing can be problematic. It denatures the food, first of all, before you even get to it. But a lot of times there are ingredients involved in processed food that help it stay more shelf stable or help it look better if it's been sitting in a warehouse or been exposed to temperature fluctuations. And those particular ingredients are not healthy. Sometimes they're not even food. And not all of them are restricted or have restrictions on them. I enclosed a handout that kind of gives you some of those key ingredients that you want to avoid. But generally speaking, if you're looking to kind of eliminate toxins from your food, you're going to want to get rid of frozen foods, canned foods, and foods that come in a box that you use to prepare your food. What you're going to want to do is the harder work of getting whole food ingredients and combining them and cooking them yourself. And I say that knowing that we live in a culture that makes us go, go, go. And a lot of times our personal lives, whether that's keeping appointments, doing jobs, family considerations, don't allow us to cook all the time. I am one of those professional jugglers myself, and I have to work around that. But I have a commitment to my health and my family's health to avoid those middle aisles and to grow a lot of my own food so I know exactly what goes into it, but also to cook. And we always have home cooked meals more often than not in our home. We also avoid refined sugar, and avoiding refined sugar is harder than you think, because it's not just about the white sugar in a bag. It's also reading labels, because sugar is put in products that you'd never think it was added to. Vegetables that are in a can often have added sugar. And it's a culprit, and it causes a lot of inflammation and unwellness, particularly for people with chronic conditions like cancer or autoimmune disease. And so we want to avoid those things. Do we have any questions so far about food? I don't want to move on to water and air, and if people have questions about food. I can't see the thing other than the presentation, so I'm relying on Darlene to tell me.
Yes, there's nothing in the chat at this time, Lily.
Okay, great. Go ahead and move forward then. So water and air quality. When we start looking at toxins that appear in our lives, it can get really overwhelming because, I've talked to people about this and had them say, well, it's everywhere. I guess I should just give up. And here's the thing. We can't control what large corporations do to our water and air quality planetary wide. But what we can control is what comes into our home and what goes into our bodies. And so there's a couple things that I wanted to point out regarding air and water quality. First of all, we want to talk about filtration. Now, there's a lot of back and forth about which water filtration system is the best. You know, people who are on a budget, the Brita filters are really quite easy to have an automatic drip pitcher of your tap water, and it's going to eliminate chlorine, it's going to eliminate fluoride, and it's going to eliminate a good percentage of your pathogens. Uh-oh. Here. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Something happened and it like flipped my screen and I thought I got disconnected. Sorry about that. Yeah, filtration. Currently I have spring water and it's been tested and it's quite lovely. But before, when I lived in Columbus, I used, and I don't get any product placement things. I just like to recommend things that I know are high quality. I used a Berkey filter, which they're not cheap. And it's something that you pour tap water into and it's gravity fed and there's a little spigot on the bottom. But it tests incredibly well. I really thought the Berkey filter was really high quality. There's also reverse osmosis that you can install a unit underneath your sink and have a drinking water spigot just for that. But the point is you need to know what's in your water. And most likely you'll need to filter it. I did enclose a resource in 2019. An entire survey was done across the country in most major areas, including the Columbus metro area, of tap water. And it will tell you by you entering your zip code what's in your tap water and how it tested. So it's good to know. Information is power. So I wanted to include that in with the presentation so that you could do a little research. As you can probably get the gist, we're doing broad brushstrokes today about different areas that need attention. And I'm giving you a lot of information and resources so that you can move forward and feel empowered to do that. Of course, anytime you have questions or concerns or you're looking for more resources, you can always email me and I'll make sure everybody gets my email in the chat window before we finish. But I want to make sure that everybody has the ability to move forward. And I apologize that this is such a broad topic that we're going to go through a lot of different things. But you should see the amount of links and attachments I sent to Darlene. It was quite impressive.
And Lily, we have a comment from Heidi that she says, love my Berkey, cheaper than reverse osmosis.
Yeah. That's the thing. Water filtration is never cheap when you want to get a really good system, but the Berkey, works out to be cheaper than some of them. And I think it worked fantastic. Yeah. Air filtration. So, I am guilty of not changing the filter on my HVAC system as often as I should. And I'm also guilty of not buying the super duper fantastic filter. I buy the cheapest one. But honestly, there's someone in my house that has asthma and allergies, especially this time of year, grass allergies flared up quite badly. So we're stepping up our game for summer and we're making sure that we have air filtration on the regular and that we're changing those filters every month. And I did a presentation for some folks in California who were exposed to extreme amounts of smoke from wildfires recently. And one of the things that was being done is they would buy all these extra air filters and then a cheap box fan. And they would duct tape the filters onto the one side of the box fan and then have them running throughout the house in addition to their HVAC. And it was quite appalling how quickly those filters turned black. Even when they weren't opening their windows, they stayed inside. Like the amount of particulates that get in, even if you think your doors are closed, your windows are closed, is pretty impressive. So, you know, the same goes with your vacuum cleaner, having a HEPA filter on your vacuum cleaner if you've got issues, especially these days with COVID being so prevalent. Filtering things, and then avoiding toxic chemicals in the water, for example. So here is an example of a way to get toxic chemicals into the water, into your body. Bottled water is a huge culprit. And even when, you know, a bottle says that it's BPA free, bisphenol A free, which is an endocrine disruptor, which causes cancer and other problems. They've done broad testing, and most of them have levels of BPA in them anyway. It's much more friendly for your body and for the planet to have a water bottle that you refill over and over again than buying this. Now, I know that that's not always possible, but trying to avoid them as much as possible, minimizing your impact is important, because there's this concept called bioaccumulation. So when I'm talking about all these different ways that we're getting toxins into our bodies, you know, a lot of times you'll hear from industries, well, it was a safe amount of exposure. But what they don't take into account is they're only measuring that one chemical, their discharge, and what they know about it in the human body. They're not measuring all the other chemicals or all the other exposures to that chemical from another source, and how it accumulates in our body. And many of these carcinogens and endocrine disruptors are stored in our fat cells, and they stay there and cause problems. So we don't get to simply flush them out of our body. I wish detox were that easy, but what we need to do is eliminate them and our exposure to them as much as possible. So yeah, kind of avoiding plastics, which seems impossible sometimes, but that's another reason to buy whole food rather than prepackaged food. You know, avoiding plastics is one, avoiding vinyl and other forms of like synthetic material coming in contact with your food especially, but also just your body is super important. Next slide.
Lily, we have a question. Can you recommend a good and reasonable air and water filtration?
So for water filtration, there's a range. And what I would do is I would look at their published results of what it filters out based on your concern. So when you get the email from Darlene that has the resources in it, look at your area's tap water and see what is your level of concern in terms of chemicals as well as pathogens that may be in your tap water. And then look for a system that specifically addresses those issues. The ones that come to me off the top of my head are reverse osmosis, and there's several different brands of reverse osmosis that they're all, it's the same process. So I would just look for the most inexpensive. But Berkey was another one that was mentioned. One of the attendees has a Berkey, and I've had a Berkey, and I've loved those. And I've also used Brita filters, and those are probably the most cash flow friendly, because the filters, you change them once a month, and you know, they're like under $20, I believe. So you're just switching out your filter and pouring tap water through it for a month. So those are good. In terms of air filtration, what I would look for, and it's on the sheet that I sent you, I would just look for not necessarily brand names, but the amount of fine particulates and matter that get filtered out by whichever one you're looking at. They rank them based on how much they filter out. And that's what I would look for. I would get the highest one that you can afford for your specific system. Home and garden care. So one of the appalling things that I found out when I started doing work like this and advising people on wellness is that air quality inside American homes is often worse than outside. And that includes in agricultural areas where fertilizers and pesticides are being sprayed. It includes in industrial areas. We have so many chemicals creating this toxic soup in our air supply, and the air is just recycled over and over, that, you know, we should spend a good period of time going through all of the products that we bring into our home and eliminating the ones that are just too risky. I would start underneath your kitchen sink where, you know, you keep your cleaning supplies or wherever else you keep your cleaning supplies, and look at the database. I sent you a database so you can look up ingredients or you can look up brands, and it'll give it a ranking based on its health and environmental impact. And then I would go out to your garage and I would also look at everything and start eliminating things and finding substitutions. I have eliminated a lot from my life because I have birds in my life. And the reason they took canaries into coal mines was that they're very susceptible to airborne toxins, and they will die if exposed to airborne toxins that are dangerous for us, but we can handle a little bit more, and we don't die immediately, but we have long-term problems. And so when you get birds, when you get pet birds, they start advising you to take all these chemicals out of your house, and no more scented candles, and, you know, no more Teflon cookware, and all of these things. And I just started learning more and more and more about what I was bringing into my home and how it wasn't good for my birds, but it also wasn't good for me. And I think I've dodged several bullets as I've gotten older by not having that stuff in my house anymore. So there are probably quite a few chemicals that people come in contact with here in the metro area for lawn care, for example. One of the ones that I absolutely hate, and I get so mad when I see it in the store, is Roundup, which is called glyphosate. The generic name is glyphosate, and there are other brands of glyphosate besides Roundup. But it is an herbicide. It's also a carcinogen and an endocrine disruptor. And honestly, with the amount of cancer I've seen in dogs in specific areas where glyphosate is used really intensely, they get like nasal and brain tumors, which are supposed to be pretty rare, but not so rare anymore. I would just avoid it altogether. If you have it in your home, send it to a hazardous waste disposal facility with any other thing that you want to get rid of. It is not good for anyone. And when I see people like spraying the weeds in the cracks of the sidewalk or trying to get rid of a dandelion with Scott's Lawn stuff, I'm like, do you realize what you're doing? You're making it so that nobody can be on your grass safely, whether that's a child or a dog. And you certainly don't want it around your food. There's lots of ways that you can grow healthy food and lawns and flowers without any of those chemicals. And I'm happy to share some of those resources with you as well. And hey, let the weeds grow. As an herbalist, I have to tell you that weeds are some of the most valuable plants, and often they are growing they're growing very close to you because you might need them. I know that sounds really woo-woo, but I've had it happen so many times that I'm like, what is this thing? And then I realize it's the thing that I need. But you can use regular pest control like ladybugs or praying mantises, or you can get chickens or guinea fowl, and they eat all kinds of bugs. Geese will help you weed your garden, you know, so livestock, if you're able to do that in the area that you live in. Companion planting helps plants like repel insects. You know, you want to protect your tomatoes, so let's grow some lemon balm or some garlic near your tomatoes, and then those bugs that like tomatoes, they're not going to like those, and they're surrounding the tomatoes. So most likely you'll repel them. There's a lot of things that you can avoid. And again, I am giving you a database so you can look all this stuff up. You don't need to be like, oh no, I don't know if this is safe or not. You can actually look it up, and there's answers for you. Next slide.
Lily, before we move on, we're going to go back a slide. We have a question in the chat. Diana uses pure filters, the PUR filters for water. How good is that?
I think those are similar to Brita filters. I think it's the same similar concept of filling a pitcher that has the disposable monthly filter. I think they're very comparable to Brita. I don't mean to endorse any particular brand, but I think that what you want to do is on their websites, look and see their latest published results of what gets pulled out. And again, comparing that to your tap water research that was done in 2019 by EWG is really good. And that way you can match a filter that matches what your concerns are the best.
Thank you.
So one way that Americans add so much to their toxin intake is through body care products. So every day people use deodorant, toothpaste, shampoo, conditioner, soaps, like all kinds of things, right? Like there's so many products that we use just to get ready for our day. And chances are, if you're buying them at the drugstore or the supermarket, you are taking in things that you probably shouldn't. Now, the skin is not a total barrier. You're going to absorb between 75 and 90% of what's in any formula. And depending on the molecular weight of the chemicals involved, they're either going to go into your skin cells, your fat cells, or directly into your bloodstream. So the basic rule that I say is if you can't pronounce it or you have no idea what it is, perhaps you should avoid it. And some of the most effective body care products have, 6 ingredients or less. And I doubt very much that you're going to find a formula like that on the shelves of your local CVS or Walgreens. And the reason for that is not that those chemicals make the product more effective. Those chemicals are in that product to make it last longer and be more profitable for the company that makes it. So half the ingredients in a bottle of lotion, you can get these big bottles of lotion at the drugstore, right? Half the ingredients are shelf stabilizers to keep it from molding, because anytime you have water in a formula, it's prone to mold and mildew. They're homogenizers to keep the lotion from separating, because a lotion is an emulsification, kind of like a salad dressing, between oil and water, and they want to keep that together. And so they use chemicals to keep it from separating, which is a natural process that should happen over time. And then preservatives. And a lot of those preservatives are things like parabens. Parabens, when they do biopsies of breast cancer tumors, 96% of them contain parabens. And that's because a lot of American deodorants contain parabens. Parabens are sneaky, because it used to be that they would just list parabens on the ingredients, and now they know people are on the lookout for them, so they start using long chemical chain names that you don't know that it's a paraben, but or they use abbreviations like DEA, TEA. But again, as an educated consumer that knows where to go when you encounter an ingredient that you're not sure of, I'm giving you the links to a database so that you can look up individual ingredients, or you can look up an entire product. Chances are the product is in the database if it's a nationally distributed product. But one thing that you can do, which is actually kind of fun, is learning how to make your own body care. And honestly, you don't need that many ingredients. And you can make a product that is higher quality than the ones you get even at the department stores, for less. And one of these days, when we're allowed to be in person, I will have a DIY body care class at Cancer Support Community, and we'll make things together. Hopefully, I think Darlene said maybe in the fall, depending on how it all goes. We'll set it up. We'll make it happen, because I love teaching those classes. You know, it's kind of like cooking, but for, you know, making a spa instead, spa in your kitchen. So yeah.
Looking
Next
forward
slide.
to that. Lily, we're going to go back a slide.
Okay.
We had a question in the chat. I'm not going to pronounce it right. What is the diatomaceous earth?
Diatomaceous earth.
I knew I wouldn't pronounce it right.
Yeah. So diatomaceous earth is a really fantastic pest control product that you can use in your garden. You can use in pet bedding, like if you have a dog bed and you don't want ticks and fleas and things. You also can get food grade diatomaceous earth and put it in cereals and grains and things. So diatoms are really tiny, tiny fossils of shells, and like little shelled creatures, diatoms. And so it's a very fine powder when you get it. It kind of looks like baking soda. It feels just a little bit grittier. It kind of clumps together better than baking soda does, but it's perfectly safe. You can put it in pet food too, and if your pet has any worms, they will cut up the worms inside, but not hurt your cat or dog. But you can sprinkle it in beds to eliminate bugs. And what it does is it dries the exoskeleton of bugs out and kind of makes them brittle and then shreds them up. So it's just it makes an inhospitable environment for bugs. And we use it at my house right now in my dog's crate on his bed, because we have a lot of ticks, and the ticks come into the house from the dog. So, you know, he likes to take his naps in his crate and stuff. So we hope to get most of the ticks that way. Yeah.
And then we have another question in regards to body care. What about sunscreens?
So sunscreens, there are some general rules that you can look for a safe sunscreen. So number one rule is it should be mineral based and not synthetic chemical based. So one way to know that it's mineral based is it blocks both UVA and UVB, and it's 30 SPF, not higher. All of those sunscreens that are higher, 50, whatever SPF, they can only achieve that through chemicals that aren't very good for you. And frankly, those chemicals only block one of them, not both of them. Another thing is your zinc oxide or your titanium oxide. Those are the two main minerals used in a mineral-based sunscreen. Should be big enough particles that they're called non-nanoparticle. So what that means is the particle is not small enough to get absorbed into the skin, fat, or bloodstream. It's big enough that it lays on the surface of the skin. And that's exactly what you want. They form little mirrors that protect your skin from the sun, which is why when you're using a mineral-based sunscreen, it's kind of white and chalky when you first do it, and you have to keep rubbing it in. What that does is the lotion part eventually gets absorbed into your skin, leaving the mirrors on the surface. So that is a safe sunscreen. Now, you know, you want something that's about 30 SPF. Anything higher isn't really protecting you anymore either. And, you know, non-nanoparticle. And I also try and avoid any unnecessary ingredients. So fragrances, essential oils, and some essential oils are absolutely unsafe to go out in the sun in. I would avoid anything that smells like citrus, because citrus essential oils could be phototoxic, meaning they increase your risk of skin cancer thousands of percentage points. So you definitely don't want that. But yeah, I actually, on the Haven Herbs blog, havenherbs.com, I have a blog post all about what you should look for in a safe sunscreen. Haven obviously makes one. We make one every year seasonally, but the criteria applies no matter what brand you go for.
And then going back to the diatomaceous earth,
Okay, yeah.
the question is, would that work with bed bugs?
It does work with bed bugs. Bed bugs are insidious little creatures that are so hard to get rid of. Because so diatomaceous earth is helpful in this regard because you can stuff it into cracks and it kills them, absolutely. The problem, of course, with bed bugs is that they're so small and they're flat, that they can hide in spaces that you wouldn't even think about. And they can go for a really long time without feeding. And so you really just have to reapply and then weeks later reapply and then weeks later reapply, because, eggs will hatch and then, you need to reapply to make sure that they encounter it. But yes, it absolutely kills bed bugs, but bed bugs are really hard.
And Karen, if you could finish your question, then I'll interrupt Lily when that comes through. But Karen started a chat, so I apologize that didn't get finished. Okay.
So when you buy new stuff, and this is such a broad category, I kind of wanted to talk about several different things. So electronics. Electronics contain all kinds of heavy metals that are bad for you, and cell phones and computers in particular carry their own toxic load. So I, again, enclosed a sheet that Darlene will send to you about what to look for when it comes to purchasing new electronics. And when you buy equipment like a lawnmower or a weed whacker or things like that, avoid getting gas-powered equipment. I know that gasoline is something that we've all been exposed to since we were kids. We pump gas, every week into our vehicles, but people don't actually realize how toxic it actually is. I sent along an article talking about its toxic load. And if you are able to avoid gasoline, inhaling it, a lot of people like the smell, but that doesn't mean it's good for you, or getting it on your hands or your clothes, that's important. It contains several carcinogens that we are exposed to every week when we fuel up our cars. So if you can avoid additional load by not getting a gas-powered mower, by not getting gas-powered lawn care, things like that, that is really great. And also, if you have a grill, don't buy that lighter fluid stuff. That stuff, or the charcoal briquettes that come sort of infused with it already. You're going to want to get plain charcoal and get a chimney and, crumple up paper in the bottom and light that and let the chimney do the work rather than using lighter fluid, because it adds this toxic load that, especially if you're already compromised, you just don't need to be exposed to it. It's just a thing that we kind of take for granted and don't think about, but we really should. Furthermore, when you buy new furniture, it often is coated with like stain resistant stuff, Scotchgard or whatever. And all of that is PTFE, also known as Teflon. It's a known carcinogen. It's banned in other countries. And it off-gases for quite a while. It's one of the things I was really scared about when I first got birds, because I had bought new furniture before I had gotten the birds, a new sofa. And of course it came stain-proofed, right? But I had to open up all the windows, open up all the doors, and let it air out, because I was so paranoid that it would hurt my birds. Because Teflon, under the right conditions, usually having to do with heat, can kill birds instantly. And if it can kill birds instantly, should we be having that in our homes? Because we're taking that in too. Our respiratory systems aren't as sensitive to cause immediate death, but they are sensitive, and we are getting that load. Also, when you buy appliances, so appliances will often have the coating on it, the nonstick coating. So it took me years to be able to get a bread maker, for example. I wanted to bake really easy loaves for sandwiches, right, for my kids' lunches. And every single one available in the United States had Teflon coating in the pan, the bread pan. And, you know, A, it's not good for my birds, so I'm not going to get it. And B, it's not good for us. Like, I don't want my kids' lunch being exposed to carcinogens all the time. So it took forever to find an appliance, a waffle iron, a bread maker, a popcorn maker that doesn't have Teflon. And that's not the case in other countries, because this stuff is banned in other countries that regulate chemicals, like in the EU or Australia. Like, you can get these things all the time. Before I found the bread maker that I have now, I was going to send away to Germany and spend $500 on a bread maker because it didn't have Teflon. It was a ceramic pan. Luckily, somebody saved me, and I finally found a model that worked. Clothing, especially for children, is often treated with chemicals that are flame retardant or stain resistant. The flame retardant stuff in particular, pajamas in this country, you cannot buy a new set of pajamas for a child without these chemicals being on it. And they're carcinogens. All of these things have been pushed forward by industries that make the chemicals, making them mandatory, making our load ever increasing, and they're not necessary. I mean, how many generations of people wore pajamas that were not flame retardant, right? Almost all of humankind, right? It's only been in the last 30 years that has been an issue. So really kind of looking at your home life and taking things one step at a time. I know that I just gave you a whole lot of stuff to check out, but luckily you'll be getting emailed resources, so you can take one aspect at a time and feel like you've done a good job, and then move on to the next aspect of your life. And as they come up, you can address them, right? So one way of dealing with not having furniture that has off-gassing is to buy used furniture, or to get it secondhand. The off-gassing will have already occurred, and it's much safer in terms of toxic load. You can also seek out furniture that specifically is organic. They make organic mattresses now, and obviously if you're sleeping and breathing so close to a mattress for 8 hours a night, you're going to want no toxic load. They make organic mattresses or organic futons. You can seek those out as well. So doing a home audit, it's going to take you several months to really go through in a thorough way all these areas of your life and see what you're being exposed to. But I just want to say doing so will save you exposure. And doing so adheres to the precautionary principle that says, if we know it's dangerous, we want to eliminate it from our lives. And if we're unsure whether or not it is dangerous, it might be, why not be conservative and eliminate that too? Because there's always alternatives. And so, it may take a little bit of finagling, but there are alternatives. Like, I replaced all the plastic squirt bottles in my house for my plants with glass ones. And, you know, when I found them, I was like, woohoo! And I bought, several. It takes a minute to kind of get to where you want to be. But anytime you need to buy something new, think about, okay, is this something that I should be concerned about? If you're going to buy a new pan, like a skillet, think about what materials you want that to be made of. They have ceramic non-stick now, which is really helpful. I love cast iron. A well-seasoned cast iron skillet is just as non-stick as one of those little omelet pans. My eggs don't stick every morning. There's a lot of different alternatives. You just have to kind of think about it.
Lily, we have a question going back to the D-Earth. I'm not going to even try after my third time. It says, if that is a powder form, is that safe to breathe when dispersed?
So you're not going to want to, get it all into the air and like clouds of it or anything, obviously. Any kind of inhalation of particulates is not great for your lungs. But by wearing a mask when you apply it, you'll avoid that issue. And touching it is not an issue at all. So, take precautions as you would with any powder. But yeah, it's not toxic, and you just want to not inhale so much.
And then we have a question from Carol. She says she needs advice on how to clean metal water bottle. She has a metal, probably aluminum, and she has only put filtered water in it. And she empties that bottle daily. It has developed a musty/moldy odor, and she's tried washing it with baking soda, but it only helps for a day or not at all.
Okay. Yeah, so the musty odor is probably mildew. It's probably steel rather than aluminum. If it is aluminum, I would swap it out for a steel one, just because aluminum has its own health risks ingesting that. But it's probably stainless steel. I would say go the opposite route. So you were using baking soda, which is a very alkaline product, and is sort of a scorched earth policy for bacteria and things. I would go the opposite route and try acid and let some vinegar sit in it overnight and try that. And if you have a dishwasher, I would wash it that way, like do that overnight and then wash it and then stick it in the dishwasher to sterilize it. And chances are, I'm not sure how long you're letting the liquid sit in the water bottle in between uses. Like you take it out for a day, you drink it, and maybe there's some left. Emptying it right away so that it has a chance to dry out in between uses is also going to really help on any kind of growth that would be building up in there.
And then we have a comment from Irene. She says, love your shirt. I do talk to my plants every day, and they do listen and respond. They grow robust and gives me beautiful flowers to appreciate.
Oh yeah, for sure. Plants, there are some really great studies out there, as a complete tangent, to the sentience, how we're discovering that plants have a form of sentience. It's not the same as ours, but that doesn't mean it's not there. They know when their neighbors are getting cut down, like they send chemicals to each other. They communicate by chemicals. So they know that that's happening. They know when a forest fire is coming. And when onions are cut, they release a chemical that scientists have likened to a scream. So, you can try and avoid suffering by being a vegetarian, but I don't know if that's 100% accurate anymore, because science is sort of catching up to an animist viewpoint that all beings have a consciousness.
But we have another question. Are the copper or diamond coated pans/skillets considered Teflon?
I do not know that answer to that question, and I will find out and send it to Darlene so she can pass it on. The things that I would look to avoid are PTFE or PFOA, Those are, acronyms for chemicals that are made by different chemical companies for coatings in the meantime, but I will look it up and find out for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our last slide. So I stopped the share screen. Does anybody else have any other questions for Lily?
Looks like we have a few more minutes.
Is there a local supplier for Detox?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I got mine locally from City Folks Farm Shop, which is in Clintonville. You can also get it at feed stores if there are feed stores near you. If you're looking to put it in your animal's food or ingest it yourself, then you're probably going to want to send away for food grade diatomaceous earth. And you can get that, where you get bulk things, like Mountain Rose or Star West Botanicals. Those places carry DE. And you can just say DE instead of trying to freak out about pronouncing diatomaceous. But yeah, any garden place should have it. But I really like, you can get bulk, so you can get as little or as much as you want at City Folks Farm Shop.
Thank you.
You bet.
I love your topics.
Oh, thanks. Well, I enjoy presenting them. What's our next month's topic, Darlene?
Give me just 1 second to pull that up in the computer.
Okay. It might be the sunscreen one. Did we already do that one? We plan these a year ahead, so I'm always like trying to catch up when it comes time to actually present them. I'm like, wait, what am I doing this month? It might be the summer one though. It might be like ingredients in bug spray and sunscreen and really getting down into the weeds about those products. Am I right?
July is actually safety in the outdoors.
Yes, that's it.
Yep. Sunscreen, bug spray, poison ivy treatments. Right. And then August, it's herbs for vitality and aging. But yes, next month is safety in the outdoors.
And I'll teach you how to safely remove a tick. All right.
Water softener. What do you think of them? On top of reverse osmosis for drinking.
Well, the water softener is the thing that saves your pipes. You get that mineral buildup in your pipes, and then eventually it causes problems where you can't get your water through your pipes. So the softener is there to make sure that the mineral buildup is minimal, and it will, whatever's excess will be filtered out. But all of those minerals are safe to ingest.
For a future topic, I would be very interested in your insights about pets. In particular, we have a doodle, and so we put the flea and tick treatment, and I actually moved up to Northeast Ohio. And it looked like he got colitis, which he's had in the past. And then we figured out that he's so nimble, he must have licked some of it off his fur.
Yeah.
And that poisoned him. Yep. So now we talked with the vet, and we're considering other options like a flea collar and stuff like that. But I thought you'd probably have some good insights to share. So as a future topic,
I would love to do that topic. And in the meantime, there is a natural product that you can add to your dog's food that will help repel ticks, fleas, all of that, and not have to use the stuff on the scruff of the neck. Because, not only is that a poison, but it's also a neurotoxin. And it can cause seizure disorders in some animals. So I try and avoid it. But here, I'm going to type it in. So the name of the company is called Earth Animal, and they call the product Daily Powder, and there's 2 types. One is better for dogs and one is better for cats. So the dog one is the herb-based one, and you put like a little scoop in their food every day. And those herbs are healthy to eat. And what they do is they, I guess for lack of a better term, they bitter the blood. And all those parasitic insects don't want to take a bite. And then for cats, because they're not, they're true carnivores and they don't have the enzymes to break down all those plants, it's nutritional yeast based, and it has some other things in it too. But they're both called Daily Powder, and they have a yeast formula and an herbal formula. And those are the things that I would recommend over the neurotoxin.
Awesome. We will definitely check that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Lily, we have a question in the chat. Somebody has a bit of poison ivy on their fingers. What would you recommend to dry it up?
So there are products that you can get. There are soaps and salves. Usually they're made with the herb jewelweed, which is kind of nature's antidote to poison ivy. Haven has some, but you can also get them this time of year. Usually most places will have some product. But what I would do is I would get something with jewelweed in it. I make mine with jewelweed and plantain, which not the banana, the thing that grows in the cracks of the sidewalk. And it helps to draw out those oils and get them off the surface and help heal the inflammation and the rash.
Well, it looks like we have 2 more minutes. Does anybody else have any questions for Lily while we have her this month? Well, Lily has mentioned that I will be sending on all of those wonderful resources that she had sent me. When she sent me the email, I was like, wow, there's so much information in there. Included in that will be the PDF from today. And then also there will be a link for a SurveyMonkey survey evaluation. Lily donates her time to us, and we're greatly appreciative of that. But we do have some funding that helps underwrite the program. And so we do ask that once a quarter we have an evaluation, and I realize this is June, it's the end of the quarter. So I will have a SurveyMonkey link in there. So please take a minute to answer those quick 10, very quick 10 questions. And hopefully everybody saw what Lily just put in the chat for everyone. So Lily, thank you so very much for your time and your expertise. We greatly appreciate you sharing those with us.
You're very welcome. And I know that it was a very broad topic. I often break this up into like 3 different topics, but this year I wanted to add some new programming in, so we kind of crunched together. So yeah, if you have any questions at all or need some more resources, let me type out my email address here, lily@havenherbs.com. And havenherbs.com is the company that I formulate for. So they also have a lot of those things we were talking about.
Great. Well, thank you again so much. And we will look forward to seeing you on the 2nd Wednesday of July.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
You move your cart, is that a right way?